back to The Score, everybody, on this Friday morning, and great to sit down with a guy that I've known for 4 decades and worked with for a long, long time. We want to thank the Embassy Suites. They're hosting all of the ESPN.
They are.
It is the Embassy Suites downtown Nashville. Our buddy Tony Stogsdill is the marketing director, and he set us up in here. You enjoying your brand new hotel?
It has been fantastic. It's easily the best hotel I've ever stayed at anywhere in the world.
There you go.
I look forward to coming back.
Yeah, you're probably going to get a free room now next time you come. But Paul, the tournament's 1 day in, 2 days in once this interview airs. What about these things fits the Finebaum show? You know, you and I talked. It was kind of a loud atmosphere yesterday, but why does the Finebaum show need to be here at this event?
Well, we've been coming here from the inception. A couple of reasons. The Wednesday show is a prelude. In terms of the network, obviously has a lot of the games, so we air for 4 hours leading into the network presentation. And the most unique part about the Wednesday show is we're literally on the court. Coaches practice. They walk up a couple of stairs and then they're on the show. The rest of the week it gets complicated. It's hard to do a show in the middle of a basketball game. So we go to the mezzanine, which is a challenge for security. So today is a little bit of a grab bag. Tomorrow is a really more interesting day when the games go to ESPN and we're on the SEC network opposite our own games. So. You're always hoping that Kentucky's playing late at night.
In fact, I'm glad you said that, because I remember one year, and I think it was maybe 6, 7 years ago, you were doing your show during the tournament and Kentucky just lost.
Yeah.
And there was like craziness behind you.
Yeah, I mean, rarely do I really ever get concerned, but it is the most exposed. During the football season, there's a screen behind us. There's a lot of security. Not that I'm giving anybody any ideas tomorrow to drive up here today, but it's pretty. I mean, you can get pretty close to us, and there are moments when we have thousands of people behind us, and then the game goes on, and we're literally talking to ourselves. But you do a lot of weird stuff in this business, and I don't really ever mind. But security did have to toss a guy out a couple of years ago.
Paul, we're going to talk, obviously.
I think he's still serving.
We're going to talk some football and basketball, but the story that has just taken the country by storm, certainly social media by storm, is what went on in Tuscaloosa in January, and then with the preliminary hearing information coming out just about 3 weeks ago. It's been a firestorm. On your show, which is unique to any other show, you've allowed listeners to express their opinions. You've told me off the air that nothing that's going to happen is going to change anybody's opinion as to how this thing stands with Brandon Miller in Alabama.
No, I mean, I think a lot of fault happened early on, but it's a moving situation. It's a tragedy on top of a basketball story. I think had Alabama been proactive and said, okay, well, here's the situation. We got one player gone. I mean, it was easy. Darius Miles like never existed.
Sure, yeah.
He's never been a part of the program, even though he was a part of the program at the moment this all happened. So he's gone. I think had they acknowledged that 2 other players were involved and let Brandon Miller do then what he did now by issuing a statement on it, it probably would have subsided pretty quickly. But the way it happened, it caught everybody by surprise. It looked like they had covered it up, and now they're being haunted with that at the most critical time of the year. So I think this would not be as big a deal today in terms of the basketball part of it had Alabama did more early on.
Is it a fair statement to make, and you've known me a long time, you'll say, Doug, you're way wrong if this is out of line. Is it fair to say that the Alabama administration, i.e. Greg Byrne, Nate Oates, maybe even the president, didn't do well by Brandon Miller, that they kind of left him there, that they maybe didn't handle this in a way that would best serve its student athlete?
They did a terrible job, yeah. And I think there's reasons for that. Not to be too much of a reporter here, but just look at the facts. This happened on January 15th. What was going on at the very moment of this? Greg Byrne was trying to push through a contract extension for Nate Oates. I don't think he wanted it out. because it could have been detrimental. That's just a theory, but Greg Byrne is not giving me inside information. I can assure you of that. So that's just my theory, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary.
Do you agree that the pressure on Alabama is going to, as long as they win, is going to continue to grow? Or do you think what came out the first time, John Quinterly's talked to the media, Brandon Miller talked to the media, didn't really say all that much about it, but at least it was personalized at that time. Do you think that quails any of it, or is it just going to keep building?
It's not going to change anybody's mind. I'm glad to see them do it, but people in the national media, and that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about you or me, columnists in Alabama, not that you could find one, by the way, but assuming you could. The national media has already made up its mind, and they made up their mind that Alabama screwed this up, and they're going to make them pay for it. Doug, you understand the media, and there's not one mind changed. And as Alabama goes farther in the tournament, it becomes a bigger story, and especially if Alabama makes it to the Final Four, then it becomes the story again, and everything that we're talking about here is obsolete.
Let's step away from basketball for a minute and take you back. Getting close to a decade now. Your show in the Birmingham area was already picked up around this country. You had affiliates everywhere. But the Roll Tide War Eagle deal that ESPN did, I think it was a 30 for 30 or one of their special programs, brought light to your format, which still has yet to be replicated. Take us back there, and what was your level of convinced that this was going to work with the Finebaum show?
Well, all this did happen around the same time. In 2011, you had the Updike situation, which put us on a pretty big map. It's one of the most amazing stories that's ever happened to college football. And then because of Harvey Updike, Roll Tide War Eagle started, and then the tornado in Tuscaloosa helped, that became a part of the 30 for 30, and that came out in November of 2011. And it happened to fall, the next year I was at the end of my contract at the Birmingham station, and all these things happened at the same time, and it just so happened that at that very moment, ESPN was moving toward the SEC network. So it was a confluence of events, and clearly I was on the radar screen more than I had been, and ESPN started talking to me about doing this. And I wasn't really sure, and I wasn't sure, Doug, because I didn't really think anybody outside, I wasn't sure the people I worked for understood what we did, let alone someone else.
Sometimes you're not sure you know what you do.
I was already pretty deep in the conversation with Sirius XM. They wanted to national, we were on their network. They wanted to own the show. So that's probably what I was looking at, as well as a couple of other things, which your boss was involved with, to be honest with you.
Streaming situation.
And ultimately, ESPN made me an offer, and I wasn't sure. It involved moving, which I didn't want to do. But at some point, you just go, okay, this is probably going to be the only shot I'll ever have. So I took it.
Has it evolved any, or is it the same today as it was when you first flipped the switch and we had you on our radio station?
No, it's clearly evolved because it's a lot broader. If you're in Alabama on a given day, you might turn the show on, and as we did last March, we spent the entire 4 hours on a Friday talking about John Calipari. That would probably not be the case normally. You would talk about it. But now, we've incorporated, I would say after Alabama and maybe Auburn, Georgia now is a topic that is, now I realize on your show you're talking SEC topics, but not to the degree, you'll get the Missouri call or the A&M call or the South Carolina call, but I'm always aware that, where the center of the college sports universe is, and it's where I've always been.
Troubling subject to bring up, and really just a weird subject to bring up. But while this Brandon Miller Darius Miles thing was going on within 12 to 24 hours. Another incident was occurring in Athens, Georgia, after their celebration of a national title. We knew the tragedy of that immediately, but just like this, we didn't know, just like the Miller thing, we didn't know the depths that it would go until just a week, 10 days ago. You've addressed that. Your people have addressed it with Kirby Smart. Talk a little bit about that, and if you think that's going to impact the draft coming up.
Yeah, these events happened within an hour of each other,
Yeah.
and they involve two of the most well-known players. The difference is that Jalen Carter is done at Georgia, even though the tragedy is equal. It's two people lost their lives. Interestingly, the school didn't do anything that helped them either. They could have gotten all this out, but yeah, everyone wants to hide behind, well, we have no control.
Sure.
Yeah, please, I've been in the business as you have. You can do whatever you want with the media. I think Kirby Smart's look bad. The question is, does it affect Jalen Carter? Probably. He was, you can choose your words. He misled or he lied. I choose to use lie.
Right.
I mean, if a policeman asks you a question
multiple times,
and you don't tell the truth, you lied. Misleading is asking kind of a personal question that you just don't want to answer, and you go, well, and you give a vague answer.
Yeah.
Lying is when the police say, were you at the scene? Well, were you there or weren't you there? So, I mean, the Jalen Carter question doesn't really interest me that much. I mean, I don't frankly care if he goes 4th or 12th. I do care, though, that young people keep making the same mistakes.
is it a fair question, as was addressed to Kirby Smart, if his program has a culture problem? Because he was quick to answer.
Yeah, he said no. Here's the hard part. I mean, what does that mean? Coaches get fired over culture problems, not if they're winning, usually. But I think the world today is a different world than it was 5 years ago, and obviously compared to when I went to school and you went to school, it's not recognizable. I've always thought there were problems, with athletes on campus because they get away with everything. I mean, when I went to college, I don't think, did I hear stories? I didn't have to hear them. I knew the athletes. I covered the team. I knew what they were doing. So I mean, I think that's an age-old problem, that when you're entitled, and athletes are usually entitled, they do stupid things.
Does the Tennessee Alumni Association know that you're holding up with Gators here at the Embassy Suites in Nashville? That could be a problem.
The Tennessee Alumni Association and I really probably not in the best terms.
Final question. I want you to just talk about this industry and how you and I, we talked about this in the last couple of days. You and I both were in the cloth, cut out of the cloth of reporting and writing. I ask you this, I'd love you to repeat the answer. Does that assist people that are now into broadcast media?
Well, I think of all the things I've done, the thing that has helped me the most is being a reporter, because the skills that it takes to report, you never lose them. I think a lot of broadcasters today missed what we went through. I'm not trying to go old school on anyone here, because when I was coming up, all I heard about was how great it used to be.
Yeah.
And I seriously doubt that, by the way, knowing what some of those guys did. But it helps me when I'm interviewing someone to think through a question, not to. I help people sometimes during interviews because you want to make them look good, but I think today we too often enable the subject.
Okay, I'm going to end the interview by saying this. We've known each other a long time. He actually asked Cameron Barry, my producer, yesterday if he could show him how to block somebody's phone number because I harass you. Let's just cut right to the chase. During the Paul Finebaum show, I text you frequently, and I'm sure sometimes you're not all happy about it.
No, I am. What people don't understand is that that's the best time to reach me. Because during those 4 hours, I mean, you're landlocked. I mean, you're sitting there with a camera staring at you and a phone, and you have 5-minute breaks every 15 minutes. But people are talking about stuff, and you'll send me a text, and it's, you don't know everything, and a lot of times you think you know something, and you've helped me quite a few times, so you never bother me at all. Now, the fact when you call me asking for money, that bothers me.
You've got a lot of it, Paul. Thank you, buddy. I very much appreciate
My
you.
pleasure.
Paul Finebaum, he is an icon in this industry now, and we all started writing sports together. The Score rolls on right after this from Nashville in the 2023 SEC Men's Basketball Tournament.